All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. We're so excited that all of you are here. My name is Oishik Mukherjee. I'm a junior at LHS and a member of the Shift Third Eye Executive Board.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm Priyanka Agarwal. I'm a senior at LHS, and I'm also part of the Executive Board for Shift Third Eye. We'll be your MCs for this afternoon.
For those of you who don't know, Shift Third Eye is a nonprofit organization made in legacy of our dear friend Shiv Kulkarni, who lost his life to suicide in 2021. Since the establishment of Shift Third Eye, we have been relentlessly working to bring awareness to youth mental health through education and awareness initiatives. The Youth Mental Wellness Fair is one of our signature events. Last year, this event was in September, and it was outdoors. I actually like it better indoors. What do you think, Priyanka?
Me too. It's a lot less chilly. For a rough program, we will begin with parent and teens communication, trials and tribulations. Then we will move to our next panel, trends in youth mental health and wellness. Later, we will hear from our MindSpeak judges on their insights from the writing competitions. Finally, we will end with an award ceremony for our winners.
Also, remember we have over 42 exhibitors in the cafeteria with us today.
Wow.
With innumerable diverse resources. We're also, if you didn't know, offering free food options for the taking.
I heard there was donuts.
Oh my God, and the sandwiches. The sandwiches were to die for. Make sure to pay them a visit. Make sure.
We also have merchandise that's being sold. We have posters and tote bags and free pins. What does yours say, Oishik?
What does it say? You are enough. Oh my God. What does yours say, Priyanka?
Mine says flourishing. It's
wow.
very cute.
Amazing.
All right. Oh, by the way, Oishik, I had to ask you a question. Why were you so late today?
Oh my God, Priyanka, don't even get me started. My parents wouldn't let me leave without cleaning my room.
Oh no, I know how that conversation goes. There's no winning there. Anyways, today we will talk to you about how to get our parents to see and hear us. Let's start with our first panel, Parent and Teen Communication, Trials and Tribulations, from our expert professionals. We are excited to introduce Danna Markson, Donna Ellenbogen, and Dr. Wendy Loonin as part of our panel.
All right. Danna Markson has been a licensed clinical social worker for almost 30 years and is the owner and director of Mind Soother Therapy Center, offering individual, family, and group therapy.
Then we have Donna Ellenbogen, who has had over 2 decades of experience providing individual, group, and family support services. She's the founder of Family Wellness Solutions, specializing in addressing the challenges and joys that individuals and couples face in the journey to parenthood and beyond.
Finally, on our panel, we have Dr. Wendy Loonin, a trauma specialist and senior DBT clinician with 30 years of clinical experience. As a founding partner of Family Health and Wellness Services, she has provided compassionate mental health care and evidence-based treatment to teens, young adults, and their families.
So without further ado, let's welcome our panelists.
We have come up with 4 role plays, and we're actually just going to kind of go through them all. While we're doing the role plays, what our hope is that you all, especially those of you who are parents, can maybe be inspired to think about what's coming up for you as you're watching the role plays. What questions might be coming up? What are you noticing happening on the stage? So that afterward, we can have a kind of interaction with you all, where hopefully you'll have some thoughts, some questions, and we're gonna try to kind of go back through the role plays, thinking about how each parent might have been more skillful, might have been able to get a different result in the interaction. Does that make sense? Okay, so Corey, okay, I'll use your name. Corey and I are going to do the first role play. Okay, so should we come up here? Okay, so Corey, why don't you come up here? And for the role play, Corey is going to be my son, and I'm going to be mom. Okay, so remember, we're going to do the role plays. This is a parent who has no skills, who hasn't been in treatment, and is just reacting in the situation, okay? Okay, so pretend Corey's sleeping, okay? Start. Action. Corey, come on, wake up. We gotta go to school. Come on, you're gonna be late.
Oh my God, I can't do this. I'm not prepared. I can't go to school today. I have a test and 2 quizzes and a paper due Friday. I'm gonna fail. I can't go to school and I'm never gonna get into college.
Corey, relax. It's okay. What are you talking about? Why can't you get to school today?
I can't breathe. This is too much. I can't do this.
Okay, well, listen. How many tests do you have this week?
2.
2? All right. Why don't you stay home today, okay? Stay home. I'll email your teachers. And what else? You said you had a paper to write?
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, why don't you take a few breaths? I'll start writing the paper for you, okay? And like I said, I'm going to email the teachers. You don't have to go to school today, okay?
You don't understand. This is impossible. I don't want to live anymore. There's no point.
This is ridiculous. You don't want to live anymore? Calm down. What are you talking about?
You don't understand. Leave me alone.
Great. Okay, that was role play number 1.
Sandy, are you done with work? It's almost 11 o'clock. You should be sleeping. It's a school night.
So much more work, maybe in an hour. Oh, and Mom, Friday, can I go to a party with my friends? They have a party that's being thrown by this kid in high school who's throwing it, and it's gonna be really fun.
What? No? A party? No, you can't go to a party. Absolutely not.
Mom, all of my friends are going. Why can't I go?
I don't know this kid. These kinds of parties can't be good. You're 15. There's all kinds of wrong things that are going on there. Drinking, drugs, God knows what. No way. And you have so much stuff going on. You have a game on Saturday. You have work over the weekend. See how you could have done all this work over the weekend and then you'd be able to go to sleep on time. But now you're up at 11 o'clock on a weekday and you're still working. You waste your time on these frivolous things and then at the last minute you're rushing to get work done. No way. No party.
Oh my God, Mom, why do you have to be so difficult? All my friends are going. Why are you talking about this work? I got to work today. I couldn't have done it before. You don't know anything about my life. You don't want me to have any fun in life. You are ruining.
Nope, this conversation's over. No party. Okay.
Oh my God, Corey, I can't take it anymore. I just checked your grades on Genesis. I mean, what the heck is happening with your chemistry grade? I think you need some help. Let me go on L-Town right now. I'm just gonna go put the word out there. I need to get you a chemistry tutor.
Mom, no, I don't need any help. Can you please stop interfering? I'm working on it. It was just a very hard test, but I'm fine.
Just a very hard test? Corey, I don't think you get it. This is high school. I mean, this is high school. Every grade counts. Why can't you just take the help when we're trying to offer it to you? You're just always so resistant. You have not been focusing on your work. You know, you're into this socialization. You make time for your friends. You make time for sports. That play of yours takes too much time. You know, good colleges need high GPAs. No one's going to ask if you got the grade after being tutored or not. Just take the help. Colleges are just going to look at the grade. Your grade has been consistently a B or a B+. We really need to get that up to an A. It has to be an A. They're going to want to see an A.
Stop going to my room, Mom. Stop going to Genesis. Nothing is ever enough for you. It was just one stupid test. I have it under control. Leave me alone.
Stop going in your room? Speaking of your room, just take a look at this mess. I mean, how you live like this is ridiculous. It's no wonder why your grades are the way they are.
Okay. So the last one is food choices. Who doesn't have that conversation, right? All right, so it's the morning scene. Is it in our house? Or maybe. Okay. Sanvi is getting ready. Mom is finished making smoothie and waiting in the kitchen. Sanvi, your breakfast is ready. You're getting late for school. It's already 7:15.
Yeah, I'm coming. What's for breakfast? I want to have Pop-Tart today.
Pop-Tart? No, I just made fresh smoothie, Sanvi. Have that. It's more healthy.
The smoothie is so big, it's too much. I can't drink that much.
It's breakfast. Do you not know it's the most important meal of the day? Just have one glass. And how can this be big? You're a 15-year-old, you're a growing girl. You need these nutrients. Pop-Tart is devoid of anything good out there.
Pretend I drink it and I drink most of it and then I leave like a third of it. I'm so full, I can't have it anymore. I'm late for school now, let me go.
No, you have to finish this, Sanvi. You can't waste good food. Your choices of food are ridiculous and horrible. You need to start making healthy choices. If I had given you Pop-Tart, I know you would have finished the full one or two. But anytime good food is given to you, you just leave it halfway through. There are so many people in the world who would love to have what you have, but you are so ungrateful.
You're wasting the food by making too much. Give the food to those grateful people you're talking about, not me. I don't even want it.
Anyone right out of the gate have any either comments or thoughts about any trends that you saw in the role plays? No, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but if anyone does. There was an escalation, yep, spot on. So that was one of the things that we were trying to illustrate, is how quickly things can escalate. And so a part of what we want to try to highlight in the next bit of time that we have are ways that parents might, rather than escalate situations, perhaps de-escalate situations. Absolutely. Anything else just before we move on that anyone's thinking? Lack of empathy, spot on there as well. In fact, one of the things that we focus on tremendously in this field is on helping whatever the relationship is. It could be parents to teens, it could be friends, it could be coworkers, it could be spouses, is really on developing the capacity to validate each other. Because actually, when we are validated, which basically means our inner experience feels acknowledged by another, which often inner experiences are how we feel, our emotions. It could be other things like, I just really want a Pop-Tart. That's what I have a taste for this morning. When somebody outside of us acknowledges how we're feeling inside, it actually regulates us. It emotionally downregulates us. And so that empathy and the ability to validate becomes a really important strategy for building effective connection. And one of the arguments that we're up here to make is that parent-child connection, having a good enough sense of we're on the same team, we might not always agree, but we're trying to get each other, becomes a really critical protective variable in adolescent development. And when these kinds of escalations happen, like you all observed, right, we're going in the opposite direction. We're fracturing connection or interfering with connection forming. This is what you need to do. So, yeah, so let me just repeat that a little bit in case anyone didn't hear. What's your name? Noreen spoke about, well, what if though what you know or believe or need to see happen is valid as a parent? And this, my friend, is exactly the dilemma that we can often find ourselves in. Where we wind up in power struggles with our kids because we know what needs to happen, what should happen. Our kids have other ideas. And a big part of what, again, I know I work really hard to do with the families we work with is to really try to help parents look inward a little bit about what they know. You know, Buddha says that enlightened people know nothing because this moment hasn't happened yet. And however, you you've raised your child and whatever and however you feel about who your child is or should be, that's a story that's unfolding. And if what you're doing, because it's the right thing to do or what you should be doing, is damaging or interfering with connection, our argument is that ultimately your results are not as likely to go the way you're hoping for them to go.
I think they get what you.
Yeah, they're all nodding.
Yeah?
I'm familiar with that.
And let me just add, so, one of the things, let me just back up for 1 second. Most of these scenarios, I think it's fairly obvious that in each of these scenarios, one way or the other, the parent was getting distressed, right? You see your kid having a panic attack in the morning. You see your kid eating Pop-Tarts when you know they have a growing, brain and need to be as healthy as they can be. You see a child valuing their social needs above maybe other really important needs. Maybe you see a child really kind of embarking on, the fast track of partying and things like that. And what happens as parents is we get uncomfortable, maybe downright terrified. What we are challenging parents to be able to do, and it's a skill set. It's not something you can just, that's what I need to do. Skills are things that need to be practiced. The skill set is self-awareness. It's starting with mindfulness in the moment about what's going on with us so that we don't parent reactively out of our own distress. Because that's what we tend to do.
I agree. I think it would be really helpful to go through each vignette and maybe pick out what was the distress that the parent was experiencing in that moment, and what are some other options. Could we do that for a minute?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So in the first one, it was the one where Wendy, Dr. Loonin was saying, okay, you have a test tomorrow? Okay, fine, stay home from school. What do you think was going on with that mom in the moment where she just said, that's too much, you need to stay home? Anyone experience anything similar or, yeah? She wanted to make things better for her child. She was worried for him. Anything else? Trying to solve the problem for him. How'd she solve the problem by letting him stay home?
Yeah.
Oh,
I let him stay home, and I offered to start doing the work, advocating with teachers.
Right, I'm going to email all your teachers, you said.
Yeah.
Anything else?
What's the message, Natasha? What's the message that I'm giving my kid when I do that? Right. So that's one example. I get anxious as a parent. I'm having trouble tolerating the distress of my child's anxiety, and so I start to overfunction and treat them as fragile. So one other question. If I treat my child as fragile and start overfunctioning for my child, what's the underlying message underneath that? That I believe my child can't do it. And that in that role play, what I tried to illustrate was as I did that, which you might think on some level, okay, that might calm the kid down, but notice Corey did not calm down. What I was trying to illustrate is that because as I'm problem solving, I'm unwittingly giving him the message that he can't do these things that are overwhelming him. He actually escalated further. His feelings of hopelessness and despair and a kind of urge to escape, like what's the point? Why even be here anymore? Actually intensified. Once that happened, lastly, then I started to swing into invalidating him because I started to become flooded. Now my kid's expressing suicidality. This is ridiculous. No. And then I started invalidating him and fracturing connection even further. So can I try to role play maybe a different kind of approach? So do you want to?
Sure.
I'll do it, and then we'll go to the party environment. But
Sure.
you want to just be Corey for a minute?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm not going to do the whole thing, but Corey, start kind of panicking.
Mom, I'm freaking out. I have a test. I have 2 papers. I cannot go to school today.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you're feeling really overwhelmed
Well,
right now.
obviously, Mom, I'm telling you, I'm feeling really overwhelmed.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. So tell me what you think would work here right now.
I need to stay home from school, and I can't go tomorrow either because I also have a bio test tomorrow, so I just have to stay home.
Okay, but what happens after that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
If you stay home today and tomorrow, then what happens on Wednesday?
Then I'll go to school, and I'll take the test, and I'll do a makeup, and everything will be fine. I just need to stay home today.
So, that might be a worthwhile kind of solution to this problem, to take one day just to kind of regroup. But I am concerned that if we don't really think about today and how you're going to use the day, that tomorrow morning you might be right back in the same place.
Well, no, I'm just going to get my work done today. Why can't I just stay home? Why are you making this a thing?
Well, I get it that you would just rather stay home and us not talk about it. I do understand that. I do. And at the same time, I feel like there's been a pattern here where this has been happening a lot, and I can't help but be concerned that, we need to think about some things that maybe you can do differently that might help you to feel better.
Oh my God, you're not listening to me. I can't go to school today. You're not listening.
Well,
you're not. I'm so sick of talking to you. You never listen.
Yeah. Well, I hear that you're not going to school today, and I'm not going to make you go to school if you're not going to school today. I'm not going to do that. And if
Okay, good. You're listening. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
No.
you.
No. I am willing to let you kind of take a mental health day today. At the same time, the only way I'm really willing to let that happen is if you and I, and you're willing here, that you and I can talk about, well, what needs to happen today so that tomorrow morning you feel empowered and able to kind of get to school and do the things that you have to do. Is that fair?
Yes. Okay, fine.
Something in that realm. Okay? So, yeah. Well, if one of these days, me will go to my house for my 4 kids. It's a whole different story when I'm home, but I promise you. You want to try one of the other ones? Talk about it?
Which one do we want to jump to?
You want to do the party one?
Do you want to do the party one? Who did that party one? Sandy. And who was so do you want to be the parent?
You want to just talk about?
Well, do you guys remember in the party situation what was going on with the mom? Kid said, I have to go to a party. First of all, the mom walked into the room. It was 11 o'clock at night, and she was still working. And then it devolved into a conversation about parties and how you never let me do anything fun. Anybody relate to that? Did you hear a theme going on? What do you think was going on with the mom? Yeah. Yeah. Well, she said bad things happen at parties like that, and you're only 15. So that felt anxious, maybe a little overprotective or protective. Anything else? Right. You have a lot going on. You're not doing your best in all the things, and now you're asking me. You're not even doing your best, and now you're asking me to go to a party. Yes. Right. So the mom was asserting her will of what her child's life at 15 should look like, and I wasn't really hearing a lot of open conversation around what the 15-year-old wanted. Right? So, yeah. You said the mom was not listening to the feelings behind the request. What do you think the feelings were?
Yes.
So do some social things in addition to work things and be able to do what my friends are doing socially. So the mom wasn't listening to the true content, right? Anybody else? Go ahead. Yeah, so a lack of trust in the relationship, right? Like the daughter saying, I just want to go hang out with my friends, and you're making it like all these bad things are going to happen. Mom's anxiety about that. Somebody else was, yeah. Yeah, interesting. So why are you coming in at 11 o'clock and expressing concern now? Is that what you're saying? Right, interesting. Okay, should we try to, do you want to be the mom in this one?
Hi, Sandeep. What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm doing my work. What, I have work to do. I'm still working.
It's 11 o'clock at night. What kind of work are you doing?
I have work to do. And by the way, on Friday, I want to go to a party with all my friends, so it's really important to me.
Okay, so it's 11 o'clock at night. Do you think this is the best time to be talking about this?
Yeah, you came here, so I'm talking to you now.
Okay. Well,
I'm a really good 15-year-old, right? Just channeling my inner 15-year-old.
all right, so there's a party you want to go to. Tell me about this party.
Yeah, all my friends are going. It's going to be at Susie's house, and it's going to be really fun, and I want to go. You never let me go to fun things. I'm working really hard. It's 11 o'clock. I'm still working on my stuff. Let me go to the party. You're ruining my life. You never let me do anything fun.
Okay, well, I think when you say things like never and ruining, it really sort of makes me feel like you're putting me on the defensive here, and that's not what I want to do. So what I'm going to tell you is I would hope you would understand that what I'm trying to do is just make sure when I'm trying to let you try new things that it's just part of my job to make sure that you're doing it.
Okay, but you're so overprotective. Just let me go. You don't trust me. You never listen to me. I just want to go to a party at Susie's house.
So
this
tell
is really
me,
not that difficult.
Okay, so tell me right now what I could say that would make you feel like I'm listening to you, other than yes.
Oh. Wah, wah. Yeah, well, how about, like, can we have a conversation about maybe I can go? Like, who's going to be there? What's going to be happening? What
See, now-
time?
okay,
you just
so
said
now-
no. You just were like, no, well, absolutely not. You can't go to parties.
Well, I don't want to just say no instinctually, but I think what you need to do is, I think you were very helpful there. What you're telling me is that I don't really want to just say no, because the reality is that I am a little anxious about you trying things that I'm not fully aware of, but there may be some questions I need you to answer, right? So I know things like where you are, who's going to be there, what is your plan. So if you're at the party, we should be talking about if you're at the party and you're not comfortable, what you would do if you weren't comfortable, how you'd be able to reach out to me or someone, because I want you to know that if I'm going to let you go somewhere that I'm not comfortable totally.
Why are you not comfortable? It's just a party around the corner at Susie's house. What are you so uncomfortable about?
Well, because sometimes it's just sometimes hard to let you go do new things that you haven't done before. Don't you ever sometimes get worried about things you haven't tried before? Well, I'm your mom.
I'm not worried about you doing things that you're uncomfortable with. That.
What I want to do is let you go to the party, but if you're going to go to the party, I think you need to maybe think about some of the things that would be helpful so we can do this together, that you can go, you could have a good time. This isn't that I don't trust you. You need to understand that I actually do trust you.
Okay, so then let me go, and then we'll have your conversation about what we need to do to build trust, and if I feel uncomfortable, what I need to do.
That sounds like a plan. We'll talk more in the morning.
That was great. I just want to add something, though. So I think you guys can weigh in, what was illustrated here was once people start being willing to listen and really hear what matters to other people, it can create space for opening up dialogue and hopefully potentially compromising, right? Like, I'm willing to let you go to the party, but what are you going to do if you're uncomfortable? Things like that. I would consider that part of compromising versus no, yes, right? The polarization, like what's going on in the whole world. But I want to add one other thing, and then we'll get to you, is that I think with this kind of role play, a lot of times parents have the thought, okay, so the therapist is saying that we're going to listen and have this nice compromise dialogue, and then that's going to mean that my kid's going to go to a party and they're not going to drink and they're not going to kiss a boy and they're not going to try weed and they're not going to do anything wrong. And if that is not the result, then this is bullshit and doesn't work. And what I would argue is that that is part of more control urges that come up for us as parents when we're anxious is that we want to control the outcome. And I get it. And at the same time, it's the same argument I've been making. If that's eroding connection, you're really not giving your kids what they are, what's most likely to help their development. And so in a negotiation like this, the outcome might be, yeah, my kid went, they weren't uncomfortable, they were very comfortable having those drinks with their friends. That's exactly why they're there, and that's exactly what they wanted to do. And can we at least start to allow that there might be needs and things going on because of the peers that they're exposed to and the lifestyle that they're exposed to that might not be that comfortable for you. And at the same time, our argument is that when trust and dialogue are open, we see and observe over all of these billions of years of clinical experience and our own parenting that actually what we see is kids developing their own inner voice and some trust in themselves and being able to actually make better decisions. But it can be tricky.
Did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say, I raised 3 kids. My youngest is 23. They're all launched now. And one of the things that I thought early on is like, what kind of parent do I want to be? I thought about how my parents parented me and what that felt like, and sort of had a vision of the parenting that I wanted to do. And one of the things that I thought, and I'm really proud of me and my ex-partner who was their dad and my new partner, is we thought that we're raising healthy adults. We're not trying to raise perfect children. We're not trying to have the behavior that we want them to have. We're trying to help our kids have the skills, have the self-confidence, have the self-image to go out in the world and actually have uncomfortable situations and feel icky and come home and talk about it and feel safe having that conversation with us. So my kids did a lot of things that I was like, I don't really like that, especially like driving carpool, listening to how my kids are talking to each other in the back and wanting to go, stop talking to your friends like that, right? But just like letting it play out, then they lose a friend, but then having a safe place for them to come back to that felt very compassionate, empathic, open, and where there's no consequences for sharing the truth. So I think that's our struggle in parenting. We can't get to all of that in 45 or 50 minutes, but just thinking about my kids are all launched now. They all went to college. They graduated in 4 years. This is really successful in my mind. They had bumps in the road with career and relationship. They didn't get into their ED school or all these things that feel very hard in the moment. But it's how we manage that, how we handle our own anxiety. When I had my freshman daughter went to college and I'm like trying not to track her on Life 360, but I'm freaking out because I don't know where she is right now. Those moments of managing my own anxiety in the moment. And I think what you said before about our own self-awareness as parents is super key. I think in the last vignette that showed up a lot as well.
Well, I think you really nailed it. And I was thinking also when you were talking, Dr. Wendy, was that a few things. Number one, I just also want to, I would be remiss, we're all sort of remiss, if we don't also actually talk a little bit about brain development here, because this is also a very important piece of this, that if people don't understand, because if you don't remember it from, I guess, biology or psychology 101, the part of the brain, the frontal lobe, that controls logic, that has reasoning and rationale, does not fully develop till roughly 21 to 23 years of age. So let me just repeat that, okay? And by the way, I say that at best. I imagine we all probably encounter people on a daily basis that you might think, did the frontal part of their brain ever get fully developed? That seems so illogical, right? And I say this is a really important piece to understand, because so often as our little babies grow bigger, we forget. And especially, right, I mean, actually, Corey is actually my son, and right now I look up to him, right, which isn't a hard feat at my size, but especially when they get to this age, the middle school and high school age, when they're sometimes physically and often physically bigger than us, we forget that that whole part of the brain that's logical is still yet to grow. Yet we go to them over and over and over again, trying to actually have a logical conversation, right? And this is where a lot of that loop comes in, right? Because we think we are writing a doctoral dissertation on a logical, rational reason as to why you should or shouldn't do this. I've bullet pointed it. I've put it in a PowerPoint presentation, and then you go to them and they're like, huh? Like exactly when we were doing that, right? And then you sit there and you're like, as a parent, right? So that's the number one thing to always remember, is that even if their body size is bigger than us, their brain is not there yet, okay? That's number one. To break it down even a little bit more simply than you did both so eloquently, I always believe there's a timeline. When I'm working with clients, there is the rough timeline in parenting. 0 to 12, you're raising a child. The way you address problems as if they are children. Does that make sense? So for those of you who have younger ones, so I have a 9-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, I have a 14-year-old, and an almost 16-year-old, okay? My younger two, when they come to me with challenges, I respond to them differently than I would. I have different expectations of them than my two older ones. Why? Because I'm aware of a timeline, particularly with my freshman and my sophomore. I only have 4 years before, in theory, they're supposed to be away from me and making decisions and being out in the world on their own. And I use that as a guiding force to do what I call the anxiety dance. Meaning a lot of what we're talking about here is really about, and by the way, for people who are in intimate partner relationships, this happens too, it always is about whose anxiety is going to win the day, right? Who's going to walk out here feeling a little bit better, and who's going to walk out of here going, I need a Xanax, okay? And we all know what I'm talking about, some version of that, right? And so with the kids, a lot of the time, like in all of these scenarios, there's some version of my kid is anxious because I'm going to possibly say no and I'm going to ruin their whole social life. Or I'm anxious because maybe I'm anxious, maybe they are going to drink, maybe they are going to do drugs, right? So I always say, always remember in that moment, ask yourself, whose anxiety really needs to win here? And remember, who's the one in the room with the developed frontal lobe? Because sometimes I may need to say, guess what, Mom? Suck it up. I should have more ability to be able to manage my anxiety than my 14-year-old, than my 15-year-old. I should. It doesn't mean I like it. It doesn't mean I want to do it. But in theory, I should. And also, if I don't let my kid do some of this stuff now, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 1 year, then what? And I am imagining that any person who's out there with a table, my fellow wonderful panelists here, if you don't think that we don't have a whole caseload of people who come to us in their late 20s, in their early 30s, in their 40s, asking us, can you help me figure out how to be happy? And 90% of the time, the root of this is that they don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to ease their own anxieties in the littlest of ways. And this is what gets them in trouble in their young adult and adult years. That's why I ask people in all of these scenarios to think about whose anxiety is more important to soothe. I'm not saying it's always the child. It's always the child's. If it's a dangerous situation that might put themselves in danger, absolutely, there's hard no's. But sometimes it's, I'm going to go sit in the room, and I'm going to distract myself for 3 hours till they walk back in the door. Or guess what? I'm going to send them out, and when I check Genesis and it's a D+, I'll deal with that too. I don't have to like it, but we have to sometimes let that negative consequence also be an opportunity for problem solving.
Yep, Natasha? It is, and I would like to quote my mother's therapist from about 30 years ago. Maybe, no, sorry, more like 40 years ago. 40 years ago, my mother's therapist said, "Leave her room alone." Thank you to my mother's therapist. Because and listen, we, of course, certainly in our practices, we see such a range of kids with presenting issues that vary, different vulnerabilities, like an executive functioning deficit, where some of that flaky, disheveled, disorganized kind of, presentation, is part of the picture. But yeah, we're looking, I think Dr. Phil says it, if you know Dr. Phil, choose your battles. Choose your battles.
Well, I want to say one more thing about the messy room, if I could. That's more about how we feel about messy rooms and the interpretation that we're making that people in life that are successful don't have messy rooms, right? So we always ask people to challenge those interpretations. That might be true, it might not be true, right? And maybe your child is wonderful in 9 out of 10 areas, and this is one where they just sort of show up and are more relaxed about it. And the only thing I would say is I'm not saying you should or shouldn't care about that. It's more like, how important is this on a scale of 0 to 10 to you in this moment to challenge it?
Well, I think, Shilpa, you actually just gave a perfect thing that it's, again, checking, and I think one of you had said this about what does it make you feel when our children don't do what the expected or desired is, right? So it's making you feel, you said we're a failure, right? So I'm going to say something that may be a little controversial here, and then I want to just piggyback that. There is a saying out there that many people have said that we are only as happy as our least happy child, right? Some people, right? And a lot of people always come to me, and even in my practice, they go, well, Donna, this is right. And I always say, I don't know, you came to the wrong person with that one. Why? Is because I actually think a gift we could give our children as they go, again, going on, because we're not maybe my 9-year-old, but my 15-year-old, and by the way, I do think the little ones too. I think at a very young age, I'm very about I love you guys, I birthed you guys, and also I'm not defining myself by you. Nor should you be defining yourself by me. Does that make sense? It's actually in the stages of development, when the separation, individuation, right? We want to be different. And I think how we show them to be different is not by saying, my every happiness is regulated by you. I walk around all the time, my children know Corey's gonna, I always say, like, I am your mother. I'm not the cruise director. You want happiness all the time, activities all the time. You wait till Royal Caribbean has a sale, save up your money, and book the next sailing date, right? It's not my job to create happiness. And I'm not a good mom if I do, and a bad mom if I don't, and a bad mom if I do, and a good mom if I don't, right? And I even just think signaling to them that, because I actually think a lot, like even the whole in that dynamic, right? Like everyone else's mom does it, right? But you're not, signals, by the way, you're the shit mom. You know what? I don't care. I'll take that. I'll be that mom if you want to insinuate it, right?
But I would just want to add to Shilpa's point that, I mean, I think I hear this a lot around different ways. It can certainly cultural differences, and we, work with a lot of Asian families, and I'm learning as I go, trying to better understand some of the different cultural expectations from where the way things were as I was growing up here. But I think the crux of it that Shilpa mentioned, I want to make sure everybody heard this, it may come from different sources, is The struggle is real when it comes to feeling like a failure as a parent. However you get there, that fear, that discomfort, that inner judgment, I think happens as a parent and can put a lot of pressure on parents. I mean, so much of mindfulness is about stopping and pausing. And I find myself as a parent and working with so many families is that a part of that pressure to be a successful parent usually means rushing in head first in any interaction. We feel so much pressure to be the parent, to have the response, that we rarely just give ourselves permission to even do something like say, I don't know. I need to think about that. I need to take a few breaths here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm not sure what my answer is about that party or whatever. Because there's this pressure, right, to be the parent, to be the one in control, and to be creating outcomes as far as what plays out with our kids. And that's sort of magical thinking, and it's actually can be very, very harmful thinking when we parent out of that particular type of anxiety.
Further about the particular question you asked. I love the close the door and that's not the battle to have, right? I actually think that it could also both could be true, which is I'm not going to sit here and harp on you about the room, but if she's a senior, I'm imagining, or so you're, right? At this stage of the game, I might not have the battle with her, but I might start having discussions perhaps that look like, hey, listen, in this house, you get the luxury of closing the door, and you have the luxury of the adults in this house that we are telling you, your room, your way. In about 9 months, it isn't going to look like that. So I'm actually not going to tell you today you got to clean your room, but I just thought maybe as your parent, I might want to get you thinking about how this might play out for you when you get a roommate. Or and maybe that's just worth thinking about. And if you want to have some conversation about that, we can. If you don't, that's fine. If you want to just look at me and say, when we get there, I'll deal with it, that's okay too. But as your parent, it's not like all or nothing, right? It's not like shut the door. It might just be like, this is the time. Maybe just start thinking about it. Or is there one thing you can do in your room that might be a little bit better? Not the whole shebang, but can we maybe get the underwear off the floor and everything else?
Just from personal experience, I just want to share with you, my daughter's 25 years old and runs her own hearing clinic in Chicago and still has wet towels on the floor. It's not my house, right? Highly successful, graduated top of her class, got a job right away, and she still has wet towels. So it's not for me to judge. It's not my life. This is how she rolls. Her boyfriend seems not to mind. He actually picks them up for her. She found someone that compliments her, and she's very, very successful in her life, in her relationships, in her career, and this one just never went away, and I'm actually kind of good with that, right? And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't be. That was my personal experience. What's important to you is not important to me necessarily, but just think about the greater picture of what it means to be successful, and I love your approach, which is in this house, you have this opportunity to shut the door, and there might not be such willingness to be accepting in the greater world. Let's have a conversation about that. It shows trust, it shows compassion, empathy, willingness to collaborate, have a conversation versus you have to do it my way, which basically just says that my parent is a tyrant and they don't give me an opportunity to express myself, or it has to be their way. We don't want to create a situation of rebellion in other areas where you're making your kid do one thing in one way, causing rebellion in another area. So just be mindful of the whole approach to parenting.
Did you want to just... Yeah. Okay. One more.
If you see your kid, there was the vignette where he was like, I want to kill myself. How do you, when your kid is really, expressing destructive behavior or self-harming or things like that, obviously you're going to look for professional help, but in the meantime, when you're home with that child and trying to manage that, you know, or you see your child is refusing to go to school, refusing to do their work, and it's unhealthy, destructive, dangerous behavior, you know, how do you manage that?
You're asking.
I mean, unfortunately, there's not a simple answer, right? Part of the argument we're making here is prevention is worth a pound of cure. That if we can work on building some of these skills so that the relationship and the connection is, you know, healthier, that there's no guarantees, but potentially we might be thwarting some of that kind of escalation. But obviously, I mean, kids are struggling. In this day and age, we know mental health is an epidemic, and there's a lot of other influences in our kids' lives, social media, the world events, and so, you know, what's her name again? Like Jennifer said, you know, at the end of the day, the hope is that you're willing to help your kids get help and that your kids are willing to get help so that they can learn regulation skills. They can learn to challenge some of how they're thinking, which is often very extreme. We tend to escalate because we're thinking in very black and white ways. If I don't get an A on this test, I might as well kill myself. Right? That's what we call a dialectical failure. There's no middle ground. There's one solution, and if that solution doesn't happen, then there's no other option. So that can be a lot of hard work helping someone who thinks in a very rigid way, very black and white, who also might have just other mental health vulnerabilities towards depression, anxiety, other mood disorders, to start developing a more flexible way of talking to themselves and thinking about the world. I would hope if you're in a good connection with your kid that you can inspire some of that flexible sort of model and inspire more flexible ways of thinking and approaching difficulties and problems. You know, and really collaborating. You know, you're telling me that you're going to do this really bad thing, this really harmful thing. Help me understand that a little bit more. I mean, compassionate curiosity is my favorite parenting skill. And
the one thing, can I just add to
Yeah.
that? The first thing we always recommend parents say is, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Means a lot that you trust me enough to share that information. So always thank your child for sharing hard info.
Yeah.
And what can we do right now in this moment, right? I love what you're saying, Wendy. It's wonderful for the next steps of getting your child help. And in that moment is always thank you so much for sharing. Let's sit down and discuss our options.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have a plan? Do you have an intent? And always take it seriously. Even if you've heard it 1,000 times before, always take it seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's a really key thing, is that I get asked this question so often, and unfortunately or fortunately, I often get the text, hey, this is going on. What do you think I should do? And I always say, like, you got that connection that you're talking about, Annie, is generally so important that you can say to a child that you could just not hear it at face value, but to ask a little bit more, right? It's not for anybody who is not a mental health professional to make the call whether or not your child is serious or not. That's an important thing. A lot of the time parents are like, I know my kid, right? So I think it's really important just to state that, right? And I get that, like, I don't know what to do. And I'm not always one to say, let's run to the ER. But sometimes it's run to the ER. Even if it's as your entry point to saying, this is what we have to take your mental health seriously, just like we take everything else from the neck down. If you broke your bone, I wouldn't let you just like, I wouldn't be wondering if you fell down and said, I can't move my arm. I wouldn't be like, well, let's wait 5 days and see if you could necessarily move it. I would take you to the ER and get it x-rayed. It's the same thing I tell parents. If this was a physical injury, would you take them to the ER? Would you have a professional assess it? That's the type of thing too, and just continuing to try to build that connection. One other thing I just want to say really quickly that's important, because this is something I actually, and it's so much I think, Shilpa, of why you're having this fair. The preemptive stuff of if you don't use the words anxiety, sadness, depression in your house regularly as like emotional hygiene messaging to your children, everything's going to feel much more intense, right? Like, it's not bad to be, everybody's anxious. Everybody gets depressed, right? But we don't actually talk about that. So then when our children feel that way, it feels like it's a 75 out of 10 because they don't hear parents walking around going, oh, I'm feeling a little sad today. I'm feeling a little anxious today. So I would also say to you, in that building connection, using mental health language to our children. So if you get to that point where they say, I feel like I want to kill myself, well, tell me a little bit about that. Are you feeling like regular anxiety like we talk about in this house? Or is this like, I can't breathe anxiety? Right? Are you feeling depressed like how we kind of talk about depression like, oh, I had a bad week? Or are you feeling depressed like you don't think you could get out of bed? Do you see how like you could have a little bit of that conversation if there's a historical context in your house? But to start to jump to that if it's never been discussed is a little odd.
We have to end. Is you want to just
Yeah,
That's
you
great.
can grab us, absolutely. All right, well, this was just a little, exposure. Obviously, in an hour, we could barely touch, the depths of what goes on at home, especially with teens. But we hope it kind of gets you thinking, and we just really appreciate you all being here.
Thanks for coming out.